Big week in the world of horse racing. We have Saratoga opening day on Thursday. We have Del Mar opening day on Friday. The two big summer race tracks, they will be opening up. You're going to have quality racing over the next 6-7 weeks or so, and really good races, good betting opportunities. Basically, the best 6 or 7 weeks you'll probably get throughout the year are going to be right now consistently. So we needed to enlist the services of two of our best buds, two of the better handicappers that I know out there. Andrew Champagne, Darin Zoccali, back from the Bahamas. And fellas, we've got a nice Saratoga opening day late pick 5 to discuss. DZ, how you doing? How was the trip, buddy?
It was good. It was relaxing. It was a good getaway. Good to kind of unplug from everything in the world and work for a little bit, and then just enjoy the family and some friends and some the kids and everything. Had a great time. So it was one of those trips. But by the end of it, it's like, all right, I'm ready to get home and get back to reality. But it was a well-timed, much-needed vacation, and get home just in time to start handicapping Saratoga. Who could ask for more?
Perfect. And AC, what is it? You are what? Is it the two-time pink sheet champ?
No.
Three-time?
I am the four-time reigning, defending,
two-time,
undisputed
three-time,
Saratoga champion.
I was going to say, you got to give him an intro. Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew
fighting out of the champagne corner.
The champagne room, actually. We need to do that.
I wasn't going to go there.
Hey, somebody had to. It might as well be me. But on a serious note, no, it was 4 times in the pink sheet. In 2017, I was the leading handicapper out of all media at Saratoga. This is my house. I grew up at that track. The soundtrack to my youth was Tom Durkin over the PA system and the recently departed Harvey Pack on Thoroughbred Action. This is my place. For 2 months out of the year, I go toe-to-toe with everybody. And in most years, I do pretty darn well. So I'm really excited to get underway. Really good opening day card.
Laura Dern Gifts, it's my house, and I live here. Big Little Lies for those of you fans. Don't forget, we actually got recaps of Big Little Lies, Big Little Thoughts from way back when we started. That's what G said. Andrew Champagne, Darin Zoccali, two guys who will be looking at probably almost every day of Saratoga, if not.
I will be every day.
I'm doing it for Twin Spires too. I'm doing the videos.
I was going to say, and Andrew will be every race too. So we'll be covering Saratoga here probably at least Thursday, Friday, Saturday, probably Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday on this show. You'll get those days of coverage where you're going to get probably a pick 5 or maybe full card analysis all the way through. And we're going to focus in on the late pick 5. There are a couple solid races on the undercard also, but we're going to put our focus there with a couple stakes races, and we kick off in the 6th race. So for those of you following along, get those past performances out. Saratoga, race number 6, July the 15th. And we're going to kick things off with a $35,000 non-3 mile and a 16th on the inner turf course here. And I guess from just like a conversation standpoint and, from how the race shapes up pace-wise, probably need to start with Alba Star, who set the pace last time out, was a beaten favorite, ran okay, got a little tired, finished 3rd. This was a horse who won back at Sam Houston 2 starts back, hadn't raced from March to June, and that was in a similar spot, was your favorite that day. The horse who beat her came right back to win. She fits in this race. She's a speed, and she's probably the quickest in here, DZ. There are a few others, though, that are going to be wanting to be close, like pretty close to or right on the lead also. So I don't know if she'll necessarily get things easy, but she'll probably be dictating things.
I think she's going to – I think it's going to be at her discretion. I think she's faster than the others. Look, I don't want to come back to a beaten favorite at the same level. That's not normally my style, but it was her first start back in about 14 weeks, so you could certainly make the argument that she needed the race. She did go pretty quick up front, 23, 46, and 2. She wasn't exactly lollygagging on the lead there. And if you take a look throughout her, her past performances, her 2 wins were in wire-to-wire fashion. A good maiden special weight win at the fairgrounds, a nice allowance win at Sam Houston. Her only bad race in her career was a race that she didn't make the lead for whatever reason over not soft ground, but what appeared to be slow ground at the fairgrounds that day. I think that this is going to be a pretty simple game plan where you have the fastest horse out of the gate. And the thing that she has going for her is that inner turf course at Saratoga can play very, very favorable to speed at times. And I'm going to go into the meet on the premise that I expect that to be the case once again. I'm probably going to lean pretty heavily on her in this spot. I think that she is going to be strictly the one to catch. I think she's probably going to have about a 2-length lead down the backstretch. Hopefully she could ration out some decent enough fractions here for Luis Saez, probably learn something about her in that first ride over the Belmont course on June the 18th. So, yeah, I think you can make a legitimate case that Alba Star is the one to catch. She's not a single for me. She'll be a strong lean on a main ticket, but there will be a couple others that I'll talk about that I think, you're best served including as well.
Andrew, give us a little bit of your thoughts on Alba Star, and then tell us where do you lean if it is her, if it's her, a couple others. Sort of, what's your approach with her and the pace? How do you see this race unfolding?
Sure. So before we get started, we are operating under the premise that there will be turf racing on Thursday at Saratoga. There is some wet weather that could potentially come into upstate New York. It poured over last weekend. I know my dad was very upset because his golf game got rained out on Saturday, and it was a monsoon up there. If you haven't seen video from New York City with the FDR underwater, you really should seek that out. That's insane stuff. But we're operating under the premise that these races will be on the turf course. I don't just like Alba Star. I love Alba Star in this particular spot for a lot of the same reasons Darin mentioned. Lone speed on the inner turf is one of the most powerful angles at Saratoga. If you know nothing else about the inner turf course, know that if Alba Star goes out and say 24 for the quarter, 48 and change to the half, the race is probably over as long as Alba Star is right. I think she is. Second off, a little bit of a layoff for a very competent barn. And she went pretty quick last time down at Belmont Park. You see 6 furlongs in 110 flat. I realize that turf course is fast, but for beaten claimers at the 35 level, that's really fast. I don't care what course you're on. Those are quick fractions, and I thought she did well to hang around. Alba Star, to me, is the one to catch, and I think she's going to have a very easy time of it on the front end. I also think the morning line is accurate. I do think Kitten by the Sea is going to go favored, and I want absolutely no part of this horse. I understand Mike Rapoli is a very aggressive owner and doesn't mind losing horses, but my goodness, hasn't run since November, drops in from starter allowance races, in for a tag for the first time in more than a year at 2-1. No, thank you. Give me Alba Star as a little bit of a separator single to kick off the late pick 5.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle of you two. So I'll be using Alba Star. There are probably 2 other horses throughout the sequence that I'll be kind of singling tickets around, different tickets that I build. I respect her. Both of her wins have come in second off the bench situations also. So she just specifically seems like the type of filly who is probably going to be a little bit better with that race under her belt, because the 2 times she's been into the winner's circle, she was better. Yeah, no like real knocks on her. Just the more I looked at the race, I did see some versions of this race where, you know what, like Kitten by the Sea, she's not as fast, but her best races really have been when she's really close. I wouldn't be surprised if Irad wanted to get a little bit aggressive and try to get her closer than she might need to be. A horse like maybe like a Shy Kitten, 2 Cent Tootsie. Like, I don't know how fast. I don't think they're naturally as fast, like Darin said, but some of their better races have come when they're close. So maybe they go a little bit quicker. I could see some versions of this race where they do go a little too quick early. And so I think the horse that I'm going to end up leaning on as my top selection is Jazzy Lady in here. I just kind of go through some of her form overall, and I really like kind of the body of work here. So I'm going back a few starts in March. Her 2 races in March and in April, those are just against a lot tougher. And she did have legitimate trouble in those races. One of them was going 1.5 miles. I think that was a little bit too slow. She had a slow start March 20th against allowance foes. April the 22nd, she's close up. She's in between. And she's just kind of sitting second, and then she just backs up late. I liked her May 31st win. I thought it was really good. And the outside draw concerns me a little bit. I don't want her to get hooked wide, but I'm going to be using her in all exotics. I've probably got combinations of I've got 2 and 11 as my top 2 here, and then some combinations of probably just like the logical 5, like 8 and 5 as other horses that I would throw in on deeper starts to the pick 5. But most of my tickets will probably be built around 2 and 11 in here. DZ, who are some of the others, and kind of how is your overall approach to this first leg?
Yeah, we all see this relatively similarly. I am, again, the 2 is going to be, I'm going to have a main ticket that will have the 2 single. The 11 is going to be my B horse. Her win at Churchill on May 31st was a good one. The horse that finished second there, Time for Glory, came back to win a $20,000, known as a 2-life claimer at Churchill in their subsequent start. And then she ran third in what was a pretty good optional $50,000 non-winners of one other than the Indiana Grand. The 4th place finisher from that race came back to get put up first in an allowance event at Belterra Park. So she is exiting a key race there. Posted to the outside. She's got enough tactical speed that she could probably be within, 4 or 5 lengths of the lead up front. There's nothing wrong with her by any stretch of the imagination. She's got a couple of buyer figures that are certainly good enough to win. She's the B. The other B for me is the 8 Choose Happiness, who I think just needs to find a way to stay close. Orlando Noda has done a great job with this filly. She certainly turned a corner since the claim back in February, and she's run back-to-back great speed figures on the turf. And I might use the 10 on a backup ticket. The New York bred going into open company is never a move that I love, but she's just not that much slower than the main contenders. And I do see certain situations where she could get a really good trip here and maybe work things out to her advantage. But like 80% of my money is going to go through the 2. And then I'll have some smaller backup tickets with the 8, 10, 11. I am with Andrew. 5 wins. I'm tearing them up and coming back with a late pick 4.
Darin, your trip to the Bahamas has made you forget what makes a good podcast. We're supposed to disagree on absolutely everything. And as it turns out, we've got the same top 3. I went 2, 11, 10, and I'm happy you brought up 2 Cent Tootsie, the New York bred, because I think you can argue that even though she's coming out of New York bred races and going into open company, that this is a class drop. Because some of the horses she's been running against are the horses that you'll see in New York bred stakes races, which are pretty darn good races. You see horses like Creasy, War Canoe, Pecatonica. Those are good horses. And then you look at the race 3 back. She wasn't a factor. It was at Gulfstream. But Toffin can run. A Purite can run. These are good horses she's been running against. And I wouldn't be surprised if 2 Cent Tootsie is well men in here. But if Alba Star doesn't win, I lose.
Makes me think of Aldous Snow when I see Aldous Snow. I was thinking, these ancient skies.
Okay. 2 things. 1, Forgetting Sarah Marshall is an all-time great movie.
Really good rom-com. So good.
2, I keep thinking of Jessica Alba, and that is a much more pleasant visual.
This is going to be the second time in like a few days that I've referenced that, because we were talking, my buddy the other day, we were talking about an episode of Low Key, and he referenced Lord of the Rings and "You shall not pass." Forgetting Sarah Marshall when he's in the sweatpants for a week.
What a great movie. I got to rewatch that. It's a great film.
It's getting kind of hard to believe things are going to get better.
It's so good. We're going to have to do a Forgetting Sarah Marshall rewatch at some point.
And if I see Van Helsing, I swear to the Lord I will slay him.
That guy in the bar starts laughing and his wife gets like mad at him because he's like into the song. It's funny. Oh yeah.
There is a great video on where we digress, but there's a great video on YouTube of the table read of that part of the movie where Siegel actually breaks out the keyboard and sings this song at the table read, and everybody at the table is just torn up from laughter. It's so good. Like when he starts to scream, if I see Van Helsing, everyone is just like out of their minds with laughter. It's so good.
So good. And and Bill Hader's great in that movie too. Also,
Paul Rudd is great too as the surf instructor that can never remember anything. There are so many good parts of that movie.
Oh, Kunu. My Hawaiian name is Kunu.
And now you're just sitting there. Now you're just not doing anything. Okay. We'll get into the 7th race here. Start of the late pick 4. When I think like about Saratoga and the Saratoga meet, these are the races that come to mind for me. It's these kind of allowance races where they're just 10, 11, 12 horse fields where there are probably going to be a bunch of horses under 12-1 that you can make legitimate cases for. That doesn't mean these races are going to be big bombs won, but like you look at a race like this and you can, depending on who you like or how you're going to approach the race, you may have a different opinion. You may love a horse, but if you're just making cases for horses that could win this race, going like inside out. I mean, the entry is very tough. You've got Southern District, Business Model, Dak Daniels, obviously. You got a horse like Yearn for Victory who jumped up and improved stretching out. Like Mr. Tip, Dust, like how many you can make cases for just about everyone. Clayton Lionheart, Bourbon Thunder, all of them. Like this to me is what really exemplifies the Saratoga meet. Because unfortunately, I love Del Mar. I love racing out here on the West Coast. I've grown up on it. You'll still get some of the best horses on the West Coast, but you just don't get races like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is for me, this is the puzzling race of the sequence. I think in each and every other race, you can find strong horses to lean on or make strong cases for. This race is one of those races where the list of horses that would surprise you is much less than the list of horses that can win. Mm-hmm. And it depends on how you feel about different angles. Do you like 3-year-olds this time of year with some upside against older horses? A race with a lot of speed going 1 1/8. Do you like the speed in that scenario? Or do you think the race is going to fall apart and a closer is going to come from out of the clouds to win the race? How much does post position bother you? With that short run to the first turn going 1 lap, 1 1/8 at Saratoga. There's a lot of different ways, to look at this race. And I mean, you could get 5 expert handicappers together who can come up with 5 completely different scenarios, 5 different winners, and all make very compelling win arguments. For me, my top horse is Dak Daniels. It's not a scenario where I think
Darin.
No, come on.
No, you
not
too.
Not my top pick, but I like him a lot.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Nice.
It's not a scenario where I feel like I can heavily lean on him by any stretch of the imagination, but trying to map out how this race is going to unfold, I think Yearn for Victory is actually pretty quick. I think he's going to gun to the front here. I think that the one half of the entry, the solid one, our ham is going to be up close. And then I think you're going to have a few that are going to be kind of right in behind there. And I think Dak Daniels is actually going to work out a trip. I know it looks like he has a lot of speed in some of his races, but keep in mind, he's gone 1.5 miles, 1 3/16, 1 5/8 at times. I don't think he's necessarily as fast early on as a couple of the others. And I think he could work out a nice stalking trip here. He's coming out of a race where he was a really good second, beating 3/4 of a length to Harvard. And Harvard, I think, is a horse with a really bright future for Rudolph Brissett, who's won back-to-back races, won an Indiana Grand and won at Churchill. So I think Dak Daniels is just sitting on a race here where he's in good form. He's rounding into form. He's come out of some tough stakes races. He's grade 2 placed. He was third in that marathon race on the Breeders' Cup undercard. It seems like he's circling, back into good form. I respect Jack Sisterson. I like the jockey here. Getting Jose Ortiz obviously is a major plus. Love the 10-1 morning line. He might be that price because this race is very difficult. There'll be plenty of others that I'll be using, but he's my top selection.
So in my mind, this is a 2A, 2B situation. If you're using something like a DRF Bets ticket maker or something like that, something that ranks your horses and whatnot, Dak Daniels is one of my 2As for a lot of the same reasons. There's a lot of backclass with this one. The last out effort was pretty good. It gives me a little bit of pause that he hasn't won in a while, but in this kind of a situation, you're getting a lot of horses that are either rising up or that have been at this level for a while. So,
and just to piggyback that before you continue on with Dak Daniels, because I'm going to use him in some spots too, like just what Darin said, he ran into Harvard last time out, who has won 2 in a row. Prior to that, he ran into Bear Alley. That was Bear Alley's second straight win. Prior to that, he ran into Lone Rock, who won the grade 2 Brooklyn. He's 6 for his last 7. And prior to that, he won Colonel Liam, who just won 3 straight graded stakes races after that December 26th race. So we can forgive him a little bit for not winning because he ran into horses that are about as sharp as you could possibly be.
That's for darn sure. Now, is it a problem when you get horses that are, say, 1 for whatever with 9,000 seconds
Absolutely.
and 9,000 thirds? Yeah, we're not quite getting that here. And
No.
as a result, for me, he's a must use. In print for my top pick, I reluctantly went with the Pletcher entry, in large part because you're getting strength in numbers in a field like this where you've got 6 or 7 horses that can win. I'm getting 2 of them. I can't advocate throwing out an entry like that, even if that entry is probably going to be favored. I prefer Aram, although I got to tell you, Blinkers coming on is a little bit puzzling for me. After 5 starts, you
know what? I kind of like it. I think if you look at the way he is as a horse, he's just a little goofy. Like he's
a little bit.
Yeah, like he doesn't really like I mean, his last race was bizarre. He was in a really great spot and then he dropped back like he was done. And then he came on again and he was getting to the winner who was cruising on the front end. So I think it's like a focus thing. It must be
fair.
He's there, right? If you just toss the grass race, he's never really run a bad race. But
that's for sure.
He just maybe needs a little more oomph. And I keep going, Andrew, before I take over. But yeah, I think that was why, because just in watching, because after I watched that race, then I went back and watched his other races, his first 3 on the dirt, and it was sort of similar. Like his first he just crushed, but then his other 2 he's there, but he doesn't really. I think it must be just like a focus, tighten him up, get him to not maybe look around, and he seems like one of those horses that might be doing that, might get a little lazy in the middle of the race.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. And that's the reason that in my opinion, if you were to tell me, okay, you need to pick a winner here, that would be where I would go. And I'm using Ajoweed as well, the entry mate. There is some back class there. A couple of others that I'm using in this race as well. I'm using number 8, Dust Devil, first time Bill Mott. Mm-hmm. And if you look at this horse's last race going 2 turns, yes, it was at Aqueduct. Aqueduct's track is very, very funky, maybe more so this past year than ever. But going that 2-turn mile and an eighth, he jogged. He won by 6.5 lengths, 90 Beyer speed figure, and that day's 3rd place finisher came right back to win. I think there's a fair bit to like with that one. And I'll also throw in a little bit of a price in the form of number 9, Clayton the Lionheart. Yep. This is a really strange case here because you have a horse that fits a lot of the things I don't like. 6 seconds and 2/3 and 20 starts with just 2 wins. But both of those wins have come at Saratoga at this route of ground. This is the definition of a 2x4 horse for me because Clayton the Lionheart is going to be a bit of a price. I think we're going to get somewhere between 10 and 15 to 1 on this horse. And if that horse wins and it is not on my ticket, I will hit myself over the head with a 2x4 very, very hard. So 149 for me. Exactly.
Especially because he's actually coming out of the same 2 races as Dak Daniels and finished in front of him, in one of those events. So if you like Dak Daniels, it's hard not to also include Clayton the Lionheart.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And Gino, I'm literally in the exact same boat as Andrew. I'm going to fade the 2 3-year-olds that are down inside. I just don't like them in this kind of spot. I like the more seasoned horses, which sometimes can be my undoing. But yeah, I'm literally using the exact same horses in this race as Andrew. 1, 4, 8, and 9 are literally it for me. So there you go.
So I'm gonna have 2 different pick 5 tickets most likely in this sequence, and one of the tickets I will single in this leg, and then the other one I'll spread out in this leg, and I'll have my single coming up in the next one. And the horse that I will single is actually in a wide open race. I talked about how great it is. It's the chalk entry, but I'll tell you a little why. One, I think a situation where the way the sequence sets up with a couple heavy favorites later on in the sequence, those are probably favorites that a lot of the public may gravitate towards, and I'll gravitate sort of against and not key in on them. So in this one, this will actually be a single that if I get home, I think this will be a race where a lot of people are spreading out and probably end up using a lot of their ammo to just get a chalk, whereas I could single in on this chalk and then have plenty left to try to beat some of the heavy favorites. So that'll be one approach that I play. on one ticket. And, I look at Arum. I mentioned, I do think the blinkers will help him a little bit. He, Arum is actually the name of a baby boy popular in the Muslim religion. It means merciful king, and also merciful, kind, and generous. And so like a regal figure. So I always think it's interesting when there's a name like that. I didn't know what it mean. I wanted to look it up. Tosses turf race. So his last start, he's a close up inside. He's second. He moves through to close up to Yankee division. And he's chasing. He's kind of hard ridden early on. And then he let a rival up his inside. He drifted, but he kept trying. It was just a weird race. I like the blinks coming on. I like Saez for him. I think he's going to be forwardly placed. And I think the entry really complements each other well, because I've always kind of liked Ajoweed probably a little bit more than I should have. And he's won one race. I've given him opportunities in some spots because I think he's got a little bit of talent. What I do know about Ajoweed, no clue how good he is, but I do feel confident that he's not getting beat because a mile and an eighth at Saratoga is too much or too demanding for him. Whereas that could be for a lot of horses in this race. A lot of horses who are maybe younger, a little inexperienced, a huge field. You have a little bit too much to do. You don't get a great trip. Like, I don't think Ajoweed's getting beat because he's not fit. So I like the fact that, they complement each other pretty well. I'm not giving you anything outside the box with the chalk here, but on another ticket, I will end up spreading using a couple others, and some of the ones that Andrew and Darin have sold you on already. Dak Daniels will be in the mix for me there. Clayton the Lionheart, who, he's over his last 14, but he's got 8 straight really good efforts. No wins in that stretch, but really solid efforts. He gets back to the track where he's done his best work here at Saratoga and going this trip. The other sort of price I would want to throw in is Bourbon Thunder. Again, I don't know how good he is. He's going to need to step up to compete with these, sure. But a horse like Snowhouse came back and finished third next out in the Dwyer. I actually liked what I saw from Bourbon Thunder in finishing behind that one last time out. So I'll give Bourbon Thunder a little look. I give Clayton the Lionheart a little bit of a look. I'll single the one on another ticket. On the others, I'll probably be 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, 10 spread. Yeah, and Darin and I spoke a little bit about the sequence before we started talking. And as we get to race number 8, which is the quick call, there will probably be one ticket of mine where I think we both have similar singles. The grade 3 quick call at 5.5 furlongs. The focus for many will be on the ultra impressive Golden Pal, who won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. He was defeated in Ascot when he ran a bang-up race. He was only beaten a neck, and he's won his last 2 really impressively. But we haven't seen him since November. DZ, tell the folks out there why you and I are not going to be singling Golden Pal, and let them know who we will be playing.
Look, he's an immense talent, and I'm not taking anything away from the horse, but I've seen this act too many times. This is a horse that has now not run in 9 months. He's going from age 2 to age 3. I've seen very accomplished, brilliant horses going from age 2 to age 3 struggle when they go from their last start in November to coming back in February. There is a major transition that takes place between November of your 2-year-old season and July of your 3-year-old season. There's a ton of physical development. There's a lot of mental and educational development. And you miss some of that when you're not racing. And he may just be that much better and just may be so talented that none of that matters. But for me, in a spot like this, when you have what, in my opinion, is a very good horse in Jackson Traveler on the outside, you can make very legitimate cases as to why Golden Pal in a late pick 5 sequence where, 60% of the money in the pool could go through this one horse, maybe more, could be even more because it's a pick 5, could be 70-75%. I think there are legitimate reasons why. And this horse is also, I think there's something weird about him. And I mean that in the way that, he ran kind of weird in the Breeders' Cup. We saw some kind of weird things going on there. Wesley Ward kind of babies him along, which is something that he does with a ton of horses. That he doesn't run his horses a lot. It drives me crazy whenever he has horses in races. because it's the same pattern. They've got 3 lifetime starts over 2 years, and you have no idea what the hell to expect. But for me, this is a spot that you take a stand against. And there is one other stat that, listen, I know it has nothing to do with Golden Pal. And maybe it's like me telling you that, the New York Yankees are 0-16 against the spread on Tuesday nights dating back to, 1972 or something like that. Because Wesley, well, I have no idea. They probably are this year. But Wesley Ward, and admittedly, he has, a completely different stable now than he had 10 years ago. Wesley Ward is 0 for 34 in his career in graded stakes races at Saratoga. He has never won a graded stakes race at Saratoga in his life. 0 for 34. You're going to give me an opportunity to bet against a horse at 1-2 for Wesley Ward in a graded stakes race off a long layoff that I have questions about while he's searching for his first ever graded stakes win at Saratoga and start number 35? I'll take my chances. I'm singling Jackson Traveler, who is akin to a couple of turf winners, a couple of nice looking turf winners that are actually still running right now. So you can really actually look up their data presently. Being by Munnings, he's quick. I love the spot for him. I love the fact that he's run well on dirt and synthetic. I like the confidence that Asmussen is showing in putting him on grass here. He's well posted to the outside. It's going to be a short field with the main track only scratches. I think he's going to sit a Dream Trip right off of Golden Pal, maybe a length and a half, and having a bit of a fitness and a seasoning edge. I think Jackson Traveler runs him down in the stretch and wins the race.
Now we're cooking with gas, Darin.
There we go. All
right. Now we're going into point counterpoint mode here. I just think Golden Pal's a freak. Now, Golden Pal may not have won a graded stakes race last summer at Saratoga. He won the Skidmore Stakes, which was an ungraded stakes race, and all he did was go 5.5 furlongs in 1:04, geared down at the end, 3/5 of a second off the track record 2 months after coming back from Royal Ascot. Now, I would argue that he bounced in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. I think it's good that he got the time off, and I would feel a little bit apprehensive if the work tab didn't have a couple of bullets scattered in that show you, hey, we're putting the screws to this horse. Something good's going to happen here. I just think Golden Pal's the best horse in the bunch. I respect Jackson Traveler. I wouldn't be at all surprised if he doesn't take to turf. He'll probably be a contender for the Allen Jerkins going 7 furlongs on Travers Day. This is a horse that has done nothing wrong. I respect the heck out of him. I just think Golden Pal is in a class all his own. Where I think you might find a little bit of value is if you're playing exactas that keep Golden Pal on top. Because if Jackson Traveler either gets outpaced or doesn't like the turf, both of which could happen, maybe that sets things up for a closer to come and run second. I think Fauci has some talent. That race 2 back was pretty darn good at Monmouth.
Is he running in this race? He just ran 2 days ago.
That's a very good question. I'm acting as though he is, so We'll see. If he scratches, then so be it. But also, in the same vein, you have a horse in Rebel Posse that is 2 for 2 going short on turf and will get a pace setup. And also, by the way, is ridden by the one graduate of Cortland State University that I like, Relu Gutierrez. So I think the play here may well be, if you like Golden Pal, to single him in the pick 5. And for the sake of value in this race, play exactas that key the 3 on top of the 6 and the 8, and maybe enhance the win value just a little bit in that particular way. That's where I go in here. I just think Golden Pal is the class of the field. I think he's got the potential to be a special racehorse. And if he's ready to run, I think the race is for second.
I have a question because I don't know the answer. He was gearing up.
Yes, I was just going to go. Okay,
way before.
I was just going to get into this.
He had a series of workouts from the end of February to the beginning of March at Palm Meadows, where he worked 57 seconds, 58 seconds, and 57 seconds. And then he disappeared for 3 months, and I have no idea why.
And it's funny because I was just reading an article that Ward had said he just wanted to focus on the turf sprints because there were more of them towards the end of the year, but that doesn't add up. Like, so why, if you knew that first, then why are you cranking him and working him? And why does he work that many times before you
Right.
look at the calendar and realize there's nothing there that you want to run him in? Like,
it looked like they were cranking him and working him for a race at Keeneland, and then they were going to go to Ascot. That's what it looked like.
Absolutely.
And then they just stopped on him for 3 months.
And that could have been the plan, and maybe he just didn't say that. But I just read an article in the DRF that he just said, yeah, I just decided that there were better opportunities later in the year, so we wanted to keep him fresh. But
all right,
yeah, it does. I'm with you. There's something, like, I've seen a lot of these horses the last couple of years. It just reminds me of a horse who's really good, really precocious at 2, and you don't know how they're going to come back. So
he'll probably win by 12. But.
Exactly. and with the approach that I have, and the two different plays I'll play one ticket. I single the 9. I'll play one ticket where I actually go 1-3-9 on the ticket. So we mentioned Golden Pal. We've talked positives, negatives about him. I'll give you a little more about Jackson Traveler, who I really like, along with Darin, and I'm going to single Jackson Traveler on my main ticket. Dam won on the turf. A couple siblings tried the turf, both multiple winners last time out. So he's in a race at Woodbine. It's $100,000 stakes, and he's behind Outador, who you see in Fauci's running lines. Outador is a 3-time stakes winner. Outador was 3rd in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. Chasing Artie is a multiple stakes winner. This horse broke on top, but he kind of, he got crossed over on a little bit, and then he got stuck inside. He was waiting for room behind the leader. He got an opening inside, but Outador had already made the big move to the lead, and then he moved inside. It was a pretty good effort. This dude is honest. He's drawn well to kind of press just outside. I think he's going to just do his best. Now, the only thing that concerns me about this is Ortiz and Ortiz. Like, if Luis Saez was aboard him, I would feel great that Luis was going to put the pressure right on Golden Pal as much as possible. But sometimes you never know. Like, if this horse takes a length off of him or something, I would love to see him try to just be going right at him from the outside and just hoping that, hey, we're going to be a little fitter than you, cutting back and with more recent races, and just try to take it to him, or like really put honest pressure on him.
I don't know if he's quick enough to
and I don't know if he is
really,
either.
Yeah.
And with I don't want him to get a little too far back, but I like him quite a bit in this spot. And the horse who's the wild card that I want to flop onto one late exotic ticket. So if you're someone, maybe you want to throw him into a pick 4 or something. The major concern for me is the draw. If Kentucky Pharaoh was drawn towards the outside, I would really make a case for using him, because I'm not convinced that he can't sprint. The only time he sprinted was in his debut, going on a good racetrack at Keeneland, and he was behind Mandaloon. And that race came back really, really live. There were, in fact, 4 next out winners that day, including your Kentucky Derby runner-up. And then you come back on November the 15th, you're behind Caddo River, who at that point was really, really good. He comes back to win the Smarty Jones by 10 next out. And then he tries the grass, and he becomes really good on the grass. You can make an excuse for his race in January. That one sent him to the bench for a little while. Maybe he just needed some time off. He comes back. He loses the rider. You can completely that. Andrew loves the toss, too. Look what you do when you toss the 2 for him. It's just the draw. I'm a little worried if he gets Golden Pal breaks, crosses over, and this guy has to take up and get shuffled back a little bit, and that's it.
It's a weird spot. It's a weird spot for him. Like, I'm not saying, American Pharaohs have done very well sprinting on the turf. If I remember correctly, I think Strut the Stage was a sprinter too on the damn side. But anyway, looking at it, like, I'm trying to understand the game plan. So, you realize the horse wants to go long on the turf. Last winter, he completely flips the switch when you do that. Maybe he just wasn't quite up to the grade 3 Kitten's Joy at that point in time. That's fine. Then you bring him back June 5th, going 1 mile and 1/8. So you're clearly of the mindset that this is a horse. Okay, long on the turf is his game. Like, where did you come up with the idea to run him 5.5 here? Like, it's just turf. It just seems like bizarre. A strange spot. Yeah.
It is. And if he was a short price, I would, I don't mind strange spots with horses that are bigger prices, because it's kind of like I do think he's like, if we're playing this race under the assumption that I'm taking a shot against Golden Pal, which there are some people out there that probably are on the win end. Now you start looking at everybody else. And that's kind of how I'm trying to handicap this race a little bit. And you've got Jackson Traveler, who, we like, but he's never been on the grass. Maybe he doesn't love it, or maybe he doesn't take to it like we think he will. And then what's the rest of the field look like if it's not one of them two? Like nobody else is completely overmatched with Kentucky Pharaoh at 2nd of July, Omaha City, Fauci, Rebel Posse, them. Like if it's a race between that sort of a group, I want to keep making cases for him because I think he could sit off and press if he had to and pass horses. The rail is what concerns me. So I'll probably end up having singles of the 9, and then my other ticket where I single, I'll probably use combos of 1, 3, and 9 as we get through the quick call. Anything else to mention, either one of you fellas, before we move to the next stakes?
Andrew?
Just a quick call is a really cool story who lived a long, full life. If you are not familiar with the quick call story, go look him up. You won't be sorry. It's really, really cool.
We get to the Schuylerville, and we are going 6 furlongs, grade 3, for 2-year-old fillies. We have another.
Hey, what do you know? Wesley Ward is a graded stakes race favorite. I wonder what I'm going to do.
Heavy chalk.
I wonder what I'm going to do.
With a Happy Soul. And DZ, let's start with you. We got WW here with WW, no E. Wesley Ward with Happy Soul. What are we doing with Happy Soul?
These races are so tough because, if you go through like some of the races that they're coming out of and you try to like find something in terms of like horses that they've run against and have come back and run well, and seemingly all of them have been terrible. Like there's, here's the angle I'm going to go with. There are certain trainers that come from certain spots that when they show up in races like this, you have to pay attention. Butch Reed is one of those trainers. For him to have this filly, bring this horse here, she's a half sister to Vequist,
who Darin gave out on this show in the juvenile fillies at I believe.
Well, thank you.
8 or 9 to 1 last year.
Thank you. Very nice of you. Glad you remember that. Thank you. Brought her. She didn't win this race. I believe she won the Spinaway. And Mainstay, Reed is going to try to do a similar move here. The horse is very fast. The workouts tell you that. The debut race tells you that. I understand it was on a sloppy sealed track. I really don't care. If you go back and watch the replay, you're going to be very impressed with how she did it. And like I said, when Reed shows up in spots like this, you really, really have to pay close attention because he doesn't bring horses to races like this that he doesn't have supreme confidence in. Is it possible that Happy Soul is just a freak of nature and wins this race? Sure. But it's not like the horse is running 95 buyer figures and everybody else in the race is a 50. Mainstay ran a 72. Happy Soul ran back-to-back 81s. Would I prefer if their posts were reversed? Sure. But beggars can't be choosers. Mainstay for me is going to be a pretty strong lean. A pretty birdie I respect down inside. I don't love the draw for her, but she also ran a very fast race. And I respect Norm Cassie. I respect when he gets one to run well at first asking. So she's probably going to be a B horse for me as well. I'm not completely fading Happy Soul by any stretch of the imagination. But if I'm in a position where out of the horse, the 2 horse in the first leg of the sequence, Jackson Traveler and Mainstay, if I can get 2 of those 3 home, I'm going to try to set myself up here to make a potential big score and hit this thing, more than once. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it. Mainstay is going to be, the key to this race, but not a single.
So I understand where you're coming from, Darin, with Mainstay. I respect Butch Reed. We're going to need to start calling him Hacksaw, I think. So we needed to throw in a wrestling reference there. But for me, Monmouth and Park shippers make me very, very nervous. They're markedly different surfaces between those circuits and Saratoga. If they went to Belmont, it wouldn't bother me so much, but in this particular instance, I just prefer others. It's entirely possible Mainstay is just a freak, but the surface being what it is, the inside draw, and the fact that I think she's going to get bet down from 7 to 2, I don't think you're going to get much of a price on her if you like her. I prefer others in this spot, and my attention is drawn to number 1, Pretty Birdie. And one big thing to note with this one, we mentioned how we're looking at horses that exit races where opponents have done well. The third place finisher in that race, Speedometer, runs in the second race of the day, breaking towards the outside. If Speedometer runs well on the undercard, I think that bodes very, very well for Pretty Birdie, a horse that showed a lot of early speed last time at Churchill Downs, going a sub 45 half first time out. That's a pretty darn fast clocking. It appears as though she's come out of that pretty well. Also, it's going to be a pretty darn good story if that one wins. Just look at the owner line. You see Mary Lou Whitney, who, of course, did a lot of good for a lot of people in Saratoga. So that'll be a pretty popular one if this one gets
She next out winners
circle.
in that win for her, too, by the way.
Yep. So Pretty Birdie for me is my top selection, but it is a tepid top selection. I'm going 4 deep. I am using Happy Soul, but I'm not necessarily relying on her. She is by a sire whose name I will not mention until I get some of that Mattress Mac money that he's.
Why doesn't he sponsor this show, by the way?
I was going to say,
he sponsors everything else.
Right? He should.
Until he pays me to say the name of the horse like he's paying everybody else, I will not mention the name of the sire of Happy Soul until I get some of that money.
If he wasn't a good guy, I would have a problem with it. But the dude is a pretty damn good humanitarian, so I don't mind mentioning.
That's for sure.
But Happy, and I'll send that to him when I'm trying to get a sponsorship.
There you go.
There we go.
Just edit out my stuff, and you're good. But the thing with Happy Soul to me that actually gives me a little concern is you see that she's been going against 5-horse fields at Belmont Park. Now, this is a 9-horse field. It's not gigantic, but I see a horse that has just been winning on pure speed and might need to show a little bit more. And at this one's likely price, I can't endorse On Top. Happy Soul to me would be a B horse. Pretty Birdie's one of my A's. The other A breaks on the outside in the form of Cartel Queen, who's a little bit of a price. I like the fact that she showed some professionalism last time out, rating a little bit off the speed, pouncing, turning for home, and winning going away by 2 1/4. Blinkers go on, gets a great outside draw. I love the work tab on this horse. The last 2 bullets show that Tom Amoss seems to be tightening the screws on this one. And when's the last time you saw Tom Amoss and Erod Ortiz at 12-1 on the morning line in a graded stakes race? You're going to get some value with that one. I'll go 1 and 9 as my A's. Happy Soul is a B for me. And I'll also have a couple of smaller tickets to number 3 Pipeline Girl, who was also professional, rated off a very fast pace in that debut win. The other Tom Amoss, so to speak. He's got Jose Ortiz on this one. He's got Erod on the other. Decent works, not without a shot. But most of my action will be on the 1 and the 7.
Yeah, the 2 horses that Amoss have in here, I think are both very live. I actually made Pipeline Girl my top selection, and for sort of a lot of the reasons that Andrew mentioned. I like horses that are young, that have shown me some sort of professionalism. The fact that they didn't just break on top, clear the field, and win. Right? It's not easy to do that, but when you break well, a couple other horses don't, and you get a couple length lead, it doesn't show me a whole lot about you as a racehorse. I like seeing that Pipeline Girl was a step slow, but you know what? That actually ended up having her just off the pace. She's within 2 or so, but then she's down inside. She's waiting behind horses. She has to angle around 4 wide, and she just gets up on the wire. That's like the type of experience you get in 3 or 4 races. And a lot of these horses, if they break a step slow and they don't get that like length or 2 lead on the field, do we know that they can get some dirt and pass? I don't, but I know that Pipeline Girl can. And it's not like she missed a break or anything. She's got plenty of positional speed to keep her right in the mix. And as Andrew mentioned, Cartel Queen too, she's going to add the blinks. She's drawn really well to sit. She had to move in between horses. Then she moved inside. It was really, really tight there. She waited. She ducks inside. Then she has to angle around. She's like altering course a couple different times. She's handy. She's versatile. You can push button with her.
Professional, yes.
Yep. Both of them on my tickets. For all of the reasons Darin mentioned, mainstay on my tickets, step slow, moved in between horses, and up the rail, just drew off easily. Nice pedigree, nice precocious pedigree, very, very capable barn, one that you take a look at when they show up in big races like this. They don't get fever. They place their horses where they're meant to be. And yeah, and then some sevens, Happy Soul in the mix in few spots. But I do like both of the Amos horses. I lean Pipeline Girl. I think Mainstay's a must use. For me, there'll be combinations of 3, 2, 9, and 7 in race number 9. And yeah, I think we got through most of this field. Yeah, pretty good Schuylerville here. And the thing is, in races like this, remember, and even more so in a race like this than in the race prior, sometimes these figures can be a little off. You know, a speed figure or something. We see it happen all the time where horses win, and then they come back and win their second race, and the buyers get readjusted from the first race because they think they're a little too low. So you can see the improvement if you like a horse, if your eyes gave you the impression that they're good, if you feel that way at Saratoga in any races, if you feel that way at Del Mar in any races, if you watched Morning Works, if you get a feel, like, don't let price ever discourage you. These are the meets where it should be the other way. You come in, you like a horse. If they're 5-1 and they're 10-1 that day, be excited because it might just be your lucky day. Take advantage of it. There's always going to be value in some of these spots. And this is that perfect type of race because it would not be a shock at all for me to see either of the Amos's horses run well in here, sitting off at like 8-ish to 1. Very
By the way, you mentioned that you like Pipeline Girl. Zmuda, who ran 4th in her race, is actually in the same race that Andrew mentioned against Speedometer in race 2. So if Zmuda runs well in race 2, could give you a good idea of what Pipeline Girl might turn out to be also.
Darin, it's almost like you read the pre-show notes because when we finish our conversation, I do just a little overall recap and recap real quick what my ticket does look like. And the only other play I'm going to give out earlier on in the card is Zmuda in race number 2.
That's my top pick on the Twin Spires video too.
There you go.
I have her second. I like Speedometer there, but it would not shock me at all if Zmuda won.
So hopefully that this race ends up being a good race. This is something that Darin has mentioned that I think you said you picked up from Brad Thomas, and kind of is it trying to find the key races before they're the key races.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we think that race is strong and maybe even just a tad like underrated as far as speed figures, we like we like some of the horses that come out of there. Maybe we jump ahead and we can find out, we can get a couple winners on opening day at Saratoga from a race that we think could end up being a key race. So yeah, fun couple of stakes races in races 8 and 9 on opening day. So we are going to be alive in these pick 5s heading into race number 10. We've got New York breds, maidens, 3-year-olds and up on the inner turf course mile in the 16th. DZ, how many horses give us some of the horses you're going to need to try to close this thing out?
Well, Saratoga is notorious for having either these maiden New York breds or maiden claimers to wrap up these, late pick 4, pick 5 sequences, and they're almost always a crapshoot. And in my opinion, this race is no exception. If you lean on Clever Fellow here, I think you're just asking to be disappointed.
Yeah.
I don't see any. I understand it's Chad Brown. There's literally like 6 horses in this race that to me are pretty much exactly the same. So if you take 8-5 on Clever Fellow when you could take a price on Viking Zim or Noble Journey or Danzig with Stars, yep. I mean, you can't take the short price here on Clever Fellow. For my top pick, I'm getting creative here. I am going to hope that riders are on horses that are really not overly good, that have had difficulty passing horses and have had difficulty finding the winner's circle. And once again, on that inner turf course at Saratoga, to wrap it up in a very complex New York bred maiden special weight, a horse finds a way to get loose on the lead and forgets to stop. And that's number 10, Big George's Kingdom.
Damn it, Darin!
Wow. Really?
I love
really?
Look at this.
Wow. And by the way, the reaction is fitting because the horse is 15-1 on the morning line.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll let Andrew jump in and take it a lot of it. But look, really quick here. It's an Animal Kingdom gelding that's getting turf for the first time. It's a big brown mare. There's no siblings that are no siblings that have run yet. But the horse has got a 72 buyer figure and a 74 buyer figure and has made the lead in each of the last 2. I think it's going to be very clear what they're going to do here. And I don't necessarily see why anything has to catch this horse. I I'm probably a little dubious about this morning line, Andrew. I think that the odds maker David Aragona and Naira is one of, if not the best in the business. I wouldn't be surprised though if the price on this horse is half of what the morning line is.
Yeah.
So that happens sometimes with horses from the Anthony Ferraro barn coming in from Finger Lakes. When a trainer ships a horse in from the Finger Lakes and it takes money, notice, because that horse is well meant. So we're going to know right away if Big George's Kingdom is a live horse just in the first flash of the tote board. I don't think we're going to get an absurdly short price, but if you see 6-1, 8-1 on Big George's Kingdom, there's some money on that horse, and that horse is well meant. One of two A's for me, not my top pick. I picked that one second simply because it's a horse trying turf for the first time. We don't necessarily know if he's going to take to it, though the pedigree says he should. My top selection breaks all the way on the outside in the form of number 12, Ruse. I thought Ruse ran a really nice race last time out. You look at those fractions, and I know it was Belmont. I know Belmont's turf course is basically green pavement. That is how fast Belmont's turf course can be. But for state bred maiden special weights to go 22-2, 45-4, 109-3, and for this horse to stay on in his first start in 5 months to be second beaten a length and a quarter, I think Ruse either goes wire to wire and wins going away or bounces hugely and is nowhere. But if Ruse improves off of that race, I think he's going to be very tough to beat. Gets Lasix for the first time. The Timothy Hills barn doesn't run a lot of horses on the NYRA circuit, so very notable that Ruse shows up in here. Usually I'm not crazy about the outside post on the inner turf, but there's a long run into the first turn, and there's not a ton of other early speed. I think this is going to be a send job by jockey Dylan Davis, and I think Ruse is going to have every chance to go wire to wire. Can you guys help me a little bit here? Clever Fellow is very heavy, and I'm trying to toss him. It's not exactly an easy thing to do to toss a 1,000-pound animal. But kidding aside, I see 6-5 third, even money second, 4-5 second. And I see them adding blinkers for a 5-year-old in his 6th start as a maiden. To me, that's a panic move. And I understand Shad Brown is one of the best horsemen in the country right now. The winning percentage shows it. He's obviously excellent with turf runners. To me, this seems like a panic move. And I think Clever Fellow is a very beatable favorite. I'm going 4 deep in the pick 5, and I'm not using them. The other two that I am using, though, are number 1 Straight Skinny, who ran second last time out, had a very wide trip that day, gets a friendlier draw in Tyler Gaffleone. And I'll also use number 5 Noble Journey, coming back to 2 turns where he ran okay last November. Jimmy Jerkins does great with this 2 sprint and a stretch out kind of move. You get a horse that ran reasonably well in 2 starts downstate at Belmont, getting that 2-turn trip, and may well sit a stalking trip under Junior Alvarado. But for me, most of my money goes in the form of number 12 and number 10 with some 1 and 5 underneath. And if Clever Fellow beats me, he beats me.
I'm going to build. There are 2 horses that I'm going to use a lot. And I'll probably play one ticket where I just end with these 2 and hope to get here. And Darin actually briefly mentioned both of them. Andrew just mentioned one of them right now, Noble Journey. The other one I'll talk about first is Danzig with the Stars, who I like quite a bit in this spot. So, you look at her overall career. So her debut, not bad. Finishes 4th, going 5.5 on the turf at Saratoga last year in a field of 10. Not a bad effort. In her second start, she shows improvement. She finishes 2nd that day. She comes back off of a couple months, and she actually shows a little bit more tactical speed, going 6 furlongs. So she's showing us improvement, and she's getting more tactical in her 3rd career start. She comes back on May the 8th at Belmont going 6 furlongs, and she has a little bit of trouble. It's her first start since December. So we can even make an excuse saying she probably needs the race. It was the race stretching out on June the 18th where I'm thinking, okay, she's going to show a lot more speed. I keep saying he's going to show a lot more speed. And what happened, immediately he was in tight. He took up, it cost him a few lengths, and he ends up 10th of 12 down on the inside, like 10 plus lengths off, stuck inside. He starts to move in between horses, And then he goes inside. He's like in the 2-path. He's traveling really well, but again, he moves into traffic. He has to stop. He got clear at the top of the lane finally, and he angles out widest of all. He was not far out of second. He's got a little bit more speed than he showed last time out, and we've all kind of talked about how there isn't really a lot of speed in this race. There's probably one or two that might go, and then maybe one or two that might sit. I think he could get a really nice spot sitting in maybe third or fourth. And one of those horses who I think is going to be sitting in a pretty similar spot is probably Noble Journey, who stretches out from a couple sprint races, add the blinks. So he's exiting back-to-back sprints, third start off the bench, third start of the form cycle, could be set for his absolute best. He had a fine start last time out, but then he got stuck in a bad spot inside. He was tight, and then he moved up into an even tighter spot, and he got shuffled all the way back. Look at the running line. It was really weird. He's right up there, and then all of a sudden he loses like 4 or 5 lengths on the inside. He did not like it down there at all. The winner in that race, Bar 14, went gate to wire. You actually see him in beating Clever Fellow last time out too. So sort of a measuring stick kind of animal for this race. I'm going to build a lot around the 2 and the 5. I will throw both of your Big George's Kingdom in onto at least one of my tickets now for some of that salesmanship. Ruse wouldn't shock me either, but I kind of thought there might be a little bit more and maybe a little bit more value with Danzig with the Stars coming out of that same race. So I'll be a lot of 2-5s in here, and I think we all feel like, if Clever Fellow beats us, there'll probably be better 6, 7 to 5 shots that we like throughout the Saratoga meet.
Yeah, I mean, my only concern, and this is just kind of a weird way of looking at it. I'm trying to beat the favorites in the 2 stakes races. They're both short price money line favorite. Right. And I'm sitting there saying to myself as I put this ticket together, are all of them going to lose? Horses really going to lose? Yeah. Because listen, if all 3 of these horses lose and I'm right, I'm going back to the Bahamas next week now. This thing pays boxcars. But at the same time, Clever Fellow is just not the profile of a horse that I like. It's just, he's very similar to a lot of the other horses in the race. I do like Ruse quite a bit. If you draw a line through the 2 non-turf starts, his form looks much better. He also adds Lasix for this race, second race back off the layoff. I think he's going to sit a good trip. I don't think he's going to. I think Big the same. Like Andrew said, they're my 1A and 1B. Viking Zim, I like quite a bit because, number one, obviously he's gotten better on turf. But as opposed to a lot of these other horses, he's only got 1 start routing on grass, and it was his best lifetime performance. So maybe in his second time doing that and going around 2 turns for the first time, maybe he's a little bit more likely to take a step forward than some of the others in here. Sure. Your horse, Danzig with the Stars, also kind of fits that profile as well. So for me, the 2 and the 7 are my B horses. The 10 and the 12 are my A horses. But yeah, I mean, if Clever Fellow beats me and I was alive through the first 4, it'll sting. But yeah, I just have to stick with how I handicap races, and this is just the type of favorite that I try to beat.
So to end this out, I feel it's appropriate here. The owner of number 7, Viking Zim, is August Dawn Farm. Darin, you're a New Yorker. Who is August Dawn Farm?
I have no idea.
Bill Parcells.
Oh, is it really?
I didn't know. That's cool.
And Bill Parcells, in my opinion, most noteworthy quote is, "You are what your record says you are." Clever Fellow is 0 for 5, has never been higher than 4 to 1, and you're telling me I'm supposed to take 8 to 5 on him? No, thank you. I'll go elsewhere, and if Clever Fellow beats me, I'll live with it.
Well done, AC.
Thank you. I've done this once or twice before.
I didn't realize. I thought Parcells was always with the Starlight Racing Group. I didn't realize he had a separate venture.
Nice. Yep, and they've got a football name too, Viking Zim, Mike Zimmer. There you go.
Cool. There you go.
Cool. Yeah. I gotta say I really enjoyed this pick 5 sequence because it feels like it kind of gives you a little bit of everything. You get a couple big fields, really big, like massive fields. You get a couple races where you're going to have heavy favorites, which is what I kind of like the most in a sequence, because the way that I play, I'm generally going to be trying to beat at least one of them in a sequence if there's a couple of them. And
Sure.
that's, like Darin was saying, that's even more than, 12 by 12 by 12 by 12 races. Awesome, great. But if you get a race where there's going to be a heavy favorite that's vulnerable that you don't like, those are the sequences that I really enjoy getting involved in, because I feel like, hey, in that race where everyone's going to go one way, I'm zagging, and if my opinion's right, I'm going to put myself in a really good spot. So you get a little bit of everything. You get some nice horses, and maybe we're wrong in one of these races, and a couple of these Wesley Ward horses are freaks. So we get to see some really cool horses run off the screen. And if we're sort of right and we think that maybe they're vulnerable in this spot, hell, we could be really rewarded in this sequence.
Yeah, and it's an interesting sequence, and it's an interesting card. Even before the sequence, the fifth race, which has it's a 2-year-old filly maiden special weight, that race is stacked with potential talent. Like if you go through that race and take a look at some of some of the pedigrees and look into like the Dam Side families, like the 2 Repealing is from the family of Jersey Girl. Lady Starlet obviously has plenty of appeal. Solasta is a half sister to Mia Mischief. Echo Zulu is from the family of a couple of stakes winners. Like that race is one of those like Saratoga races where you say, okay, the winner of this race is going to be in the spinaway. Like, it's like a foregone conclusion. So it's a really interesting card. And like you said, this sequence, in my opinion, it's going to go one of 2 ways. It's either going to be chalky, or this thing is going to pay boxcars. I don't think there's going to be a middle ground.
I agree.
Either these favorites are going to be good and it's not going to pay much, or the favorites are not going to be good. And if you're right, Uncle Sam's going to come for a visit. It is an interesting sequence, and I think it is a really good opening day card at Saratoga.
I'm admittedly biased given my background and the things I have been fortunate enough to do and the places at which I have been fortunate enough to do it. Opening day at Saratoga is one of the happiest days of the year for me, and for good reason. This is a very good card. Hopefully the first of 40 consecutive very good cards up at one of the last remaining cathedrals in thoroughbred horse racing. I think there actually is room for this to be sort of a middling pick 5. I'm singling Alba's Star to kick things off. I'm spreading in the second leg. I'm singling Golden Pal. I can't go against a horse like that if it's right, runs off the screen in that kind of particular race. And then I'm 4 deep in both of the last 2 legs. And in the last of them, I'm throwing out the likely 8-5 morning line favorite. Maybe there is a potential my $32 ticket hits and pays $800,000. And you know what? I'm just fine with that.
It's the start of a really fun week of racing. And hey, we're recording this on Tuesday night. The Del Mar entries just came out too, and the opening day at Del Mar looks awesome. Really, really good. They got some big fields signed up for there too for Friday. On That's What G Said later this week, we will be covering Friday and Saturday from Del Mar and from Saratoga. We'll have Emily Gullickson helping us out with opening day Del Mar. We're going to have Chase, the Wolf of Oaklawn. He's going to join us to talk a little Friday Saratoga. And then we'll also have, I believe, a couple guests for another show for the Saturday Saratoga and Del Mar. Don't forget, there's also on Thursday, if you're playing at Saratoga, if you're looking for another track to complement, there's going to be a mandatory pick 6 payout at Woodbine, which you could play for those 20-cent based wagers. So you could put in a real easy small ticket, and I'm going to go through that sequence here following this. So if you're interested, you'll have a couple different things to play on Thursday. DZ is going to be covering Saratoga all meet long for Twin Spires. You'll see Darin posting on social media. He'll have some videos there with some of his analysis, and you'll always get from Darin what you get every time you hear him on this show, whether it's racing, whether it's wrestling. You're going to get a really, really strong opinion and a very well-researched opinion, always doing his work. The very same for Andrew. That's why we have them on here. Andrew, you'll get selections from him every day. You'll get stuff from andrewchampagne.com written. You'll get Champagne and JD. You'll get Andrew popping up on other shows because people know that Saratoga is one of the meets that he really, really loves. So, fellas, I'll have to take advantage of you two a couple more times throughout the meet so we can talk about some of these big cards.
Yeah, absolutely. And one other thing that I'm actually looking forward to, I'm really interested to see what this Colonial Downs meet looks like. which starts in a week. Colonial Downs is reopening.
A lot of
They
fun.
have a monster purse structure. They're going to have really interesting races. They have a lot of good stakes events, but they have, I mean, their allowance races, their entry level allowance are going for $60,000, $70,000. They're known obviously for their turf course, and they have an abundance of turf racing. But that meet gets underway on Monday the 19th. I think they draw for their opening day card on Wednesday the 14th, which is tomorrow as we're recording this. So that is a track that's going to be interesting, because I think you're not going to get Saratoga level horses, but you're going to get some really good horses and some big name trainers. And there's going to be a lot of exciting racing there. And I think and by the way, they're going to be running on Mondays and Tuesdays. So it's and Wednesdays a little bit too, but so you get some fill for when you're missing Saratoga early in the week. I think Colonial Downs is going to really kind of finish off and fill that cup up to the brim and give you that nice compliment throughout the summer.
I got a feeling, Andrew, it sounds like we may end up seeing a thorough crowd horse or two out there.
You're going to see a bunch.
I could hear
You're going to see a bunch. You're going to see a bunch, because they have some nice programs where I think they're guaranteed $1,000 just for starting in the races, which takes care of the shipping fees and stuff like that. So without having to worry about shipping the horse and paying for it and knowing that you're guaranteed that money, we have already have several spots circled that we are very, very intrigued with.
And they actually have all the way. What's nice is they got the grass racing all the way down and all the way up, right? You get really good allowance races and stuff, but I think they have like races for a lot lower levels too, which is fun, because I mean, there's a lot of horses that maybe you're a grass horse, but you're like an 8-10 claimer and you really can't compete at Saratoga that much or on the Southern California circuit quite that much, but you've got a place you can still run well, and maybe you're more of a Sam Houston or like this. That's where Lone Star. So that's where a lot of these horses are going to run. And those are some of my favorite tracks to play. When you can get the turf racing for all levels, and it makes those exotic wagers so much nicer, because some days at tracks, if it's all dirt racing, you get that string of like, the dirt's playing really fast today, or like it's really chalky and you just get, speed, chalk. You just don't get that at a track like Colonial, which is so nice with the grass and the grass structure there. It's a track that I love to play.
Yeah. Andrew, we invite you to take part as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I was waiting for you guys to stop the love fest so I could jump in. But on the plus side, Colonial has a lot of similarities, I think, to Kentucky Downs. You get a lot of purse money. You get a lot of big fields. You only need to be right from a handicapping perspective a couple of times in order to have a really good day, and in some cases, a really good meet. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch. You've still got the meet up at Woodbine. I've been playing that a little bit more. That's just such a fun racetrack with a lot of people that have been through a lot with all of the COVID restrictions that were placed upon them. They started up last month. Very happy to see that they're doing well. But I got to tell you guys, you guys were talking about filling up cups. My cup is running over with all of the Saratoga stuff that I am doing. I've got a full-time job. I am a communications and marketing manager for a nonprofit up here in the Bay Area. This is a second full-time job, the way that I treat it. I have said it in a couple of different places, and I will say it again here. You might find people that work as hard as I do on some of this stuff. You're not going to find anybody that works harder. So hopefully you can latch on and we can have a good time, make some money.
DZ at the track 7, Andrew Champagne at Andrew Champagne. Give them a follow along for all their great work throughout the summer, and we're always appreciative to have them on. That's what G said again. Darin, for our next one, I don't know if he told you or if you heard, for our next old wrestling rewatch, Andrew wanted to do, he kind of asked for his next 2 shows if we could do Rumble and then WrestleMania 30. So basically the Daniel Bryan saga.
Okay.
So I just said, let's just do them back to back now.
Sure.
They'll just do it. We'll just do them back to back. So we're going to do Rumble, 2014 Royal Rumble, and then we're going to do WrestleMania 30 as our next 2 old wrestling rewatches.
We're not doing it in one show, right?
No.
Hell no.
That would be That would be like 3 podcasts worth of I think I can't get like more than, as far as like putting up a show that I need to load, like 5 hours is as far as I'll go. I can get to like 4 hours and 59 minutes. Once I hit 5, it's like, it's so hard to upload it from a memory standpoint and everything. So yeah, we'll go Rumble and then we'll go WrestleMania 30.
That's a good idea, because I mean, if we went that long on one show, I mean, how many Manscaped ads would you have to read in the span of that?
Man, at least 4 about the lawnmower 4.0 and the promo code 2 idiots. Thank you for that assist, Andrew.
You're welcome.
And, love you, fellas. Good luck. We'll be going back and forth all throughout the week, and make sure to give Andrew and Darin a follow. Thanks again, boys. Have a great night.
All right, guys. Take care. Best of luck.
My pleasure.
Do not go anywhere. We'll do a little recap of opening day at Saratoga, and then we'll move on. We'll get you some Woodbine, and we'll get to some other topics here on That's What G Said.